The webinar has started, Charlie. This time
Sweet.
I can promise you, for those that attended last time, we are recording. I do not think that there is no backstage. We do have some attendees here. If anyone would like to test this out on our behalf and chime in into the chat or even test out the Q&A, that would be wonderful. We would greatly appreciate it. I kept, and hello,
What's
thank
up,
you.
dude?
Got some representation from Contender. Here we go. People are funneling in, Charlie.
I love it. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm gonna be energetic and all kinds of nonsense here, Ron,
Bring
because
it.
I'm heading in the direction of my summer vacation. And so right now, this is like, what's up, Lindy?
Here we
This
go.
is this is like my last major burst before I go into chill mode for a couple of days. So you all are getting all of it. Brittany, good to see you. I got to see Brittany in person recently.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Brittany, here we go.
Keep the hellos coming, y'all. Kate, awesome to see
Kate,
you.
thank you for your support. You show up many times to these. If we don't mind, just someone try throwing in a test Q&A to make sure Q&A is working. If not, I will make sure to keep up with the chat. A little bit of housekeeping there. It's more difficult to keep up as the chat keeps going. I want to make sure I hit all the questions.
Hello,
Tracy,
Tracy.
it's working. Thank you. And Mackenzie, much appreciated. We've got a live one this time, Charlie.
I
Sometimes
like
chat
it.
and Q&A is a little bit what's your favorite best I'm sorry. I said what's your favorite best era album?
uh,
Brittany asked what's your favorite Taylor Swift album? There we go.
Look, I'll be honest, I can barely remember the album names of my absolute favorite bands that I've like paid attention to for my entire life. So it's not that I don't like Taylor Swift. I just don't remember albums or even song names. It just doesn't click with me, Ron.
I I know them by the track number when I used to listen to the CDs in the car. I know it's track
Woo-woo.
1, 4, 5, you know?
Yep.
That's what we did. All right, I think
Heck
we've
yeah.
got 2 minutes here. Let's reward those that were on time. Those that are tardy, they will still get the call recording and they will be able to visit YouTube as well as the website and Charlie's as well. All right, let's close this down here. Welcome again, everyone. Good afternoon. Appreciate you spending the time with myself and Charlie. We know there's a lot of other things that you could possibly be doing. So the fact that you're here with us, we're very grateful and we
I
appreciate.
disagree. I actually think this is the only thing they could be doing, but you know.
Hey, I think it's a lot of value. We're gonna bring the heat here today. So they're gonna get a bunch out of this next hour. For those of you that this is your first time, welcome to another installment of the LegalFenix Webinar Series. I am Ron Latz, the founder of LegalFenix. We're a fractional CMO outfit. We help firms invest in marketing that actually works, as well as protect their legal marketing investments. Today's session is one, as you can tell already, I'm very excited about. So is Charlie, but it's for many different reasons. Now, you might be here. Chances are you've either tried sending a newsletter and it's more like a checkbox approach, or you tried launching and relaunching the newsletter before and it fizzled out before it even really took off. Maybe your emails aren't getting opened or read. The reason why this is so important is because email is one of the only marketing channels that you can truly own. And a lot of firms have trouble making it into the inbox. Their newsletters might not get opened or drive the outcomes that we're looking for, like relationships, referrals, or just to open doors to other opportunities. And that's where my good friend and guest comes in. Charlie Mann, the co-founder of Red Kraken Creative and founder of Law Firm Alchemy. He's one of the few people in the space that doesn't only understand how lawyers think, but inside the operations of a legal business. And today he's going to share how to help you build a newsletter strategy that can reflect your voice, your values, and almost as most importantly, your business goals. So
Yeah.
we'll break it down, Charlie, exactly what makes these things work, how to get them delivered, how to get them opened, right? Getting them read in these very crowded inboxes, and then really how to leverage the relationships that you have to get readers to take some action. As you can already tell, I got chat here. I've got Q&A going. This is going to be very interactive. Got a bunch of pre-submitted questions that we're going to tackle. At the end, there will be a survey. So if you want to talk to Charlie or myself, you just click yay or nay. Now that the housekeeping is out of the way, let's start and jump in and share some frameworks that these people can steal and start using, Charlie. All right?
Awesome. And by the way, just so everyone knows, I like super hyper open book on all of this. Nothing to hide. I'll tell you all the tools that we use, tools that we recommend, tools that we don't recommend, everything that we do that works, everything that we do that creates complications. Like seriously, you have any question during this, I will answer it. I will share every bit of expertise that I have. Nothing to hide here.
Awesome. Love the transparency. It's how we operate here. Now let's dive right in. I've had a lot of other guests, Charlie, where we're talking about specific channels, whether it's paid search, SEO, out of home, etc. Right? So we're
Yeah.
talking newsletters. And what I want to start off first with is a question that I ask every firm that I speak with is defining success and ensuring that we are aligned with what the overall business goals are. So let's talk a little bit first about the purpose that the newsletter serves, how you're defining success, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So what's interesting about email is its versatility, which is its greatest gift and its most frustrating aspect. Because what's great is we can tailor it to the objectives of the firm based on where they are in growth and, quite frankly, what practice area they're in. So a really simple example of this would be with an estate planning firm, and we're working with a bunch of estate planning firms. The objective oftentimes off of sending this weekly email newsletter is to directly drive new discovery calls, because in estate planning, that's something you can do, right? You can trigger a purchase rather than waiting for a purchase. Whereas on, say, the personal injury side or many other contingency practices that are not only contingency fee, but maybe contingent on something happening, it is about driving referrals predominantly and staying. A phrase that I've had to get adjusted to using, Ron, is staying top of mind. I come from the direct response marketing world, so I love measurables. And actually, what we've started doing, and if you're an existing client, you're going to see more and more of this, is we're starting to focus on using OKRs, objectives and key results,
Mhm.
because what firms are looking for changes by the firm. So let's say it's like one of our firms, they've got a list of about 5,000 people, they're up in the Northeast, and they are not looking to drive clients specifically off of the newsletter. What they view the newsletter as is part of their holistic approach that goes alongside social media and their YouTube channel to stay in front of new and returning audiences to overall lift referrals. So one of the things that we're starting to do more frequently is getting a referral number benchmark from clients and asking them, how many referred clients are you receiving on average each month? And now we're looking at, okay, over the next 3, 6, 12 months, what impact can we have on this? Now, here's the complication on this.
Mhm.
Direct attribution to email is in some cases similar to direct attribution from, say, a print newsletter, which, by the way, I love a print newsletter as well. I love a list that you stay in touch with. The direct attribution is not always perfect, which drives me up a wall, because I would love everything to be a perfect one-to-one. But the reality of marketing these days is that old linear path that we used to have, that 1, 2, 3 waltz that we used to have, has been replaced with like an amalgamation of a tango and hip hop and a little bit of breaking in there to get them to show up. So while we attach ourselves to that number, in achieving that number, we want to see how we can move the needle in other ways in the practice. It could be driving people to more video views. It could be participating in a charitable giving event. It could be showing up at a live event being put on or supported or sponsored by the law firm. So we look for other numbers to see how we can move the needle and to measure the impact of that relationship that we're creating with the email itself.
So I'm hearing here it's not just about clicks and open rates.
No, no. I mean, those are important, right? Like those
Sure.
are those are numerical factors. The same way that in a law firm, it's not just about driving more leads; it's the right leads.
Correct, correct. You mentioned a client Northeast, even if it was an example, 5,000. One of the pre-submitted questions was, we do have quite a large list. We have multiple practice areas. Do we have one newsletter? Do we have multiple? How do we split this up? And then they did jump into like the frequency question.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll start with the frequency question, because for me that's really important. It's one of the things
Okay.
that we want to change for firms with Kraken Creative. We do weekly email sends, and you're gonna actually see, like, I'll sometimes say newsletter, sometimes say broadcast, send, or just email letter, because the type of emails that we send are not these big magazine brochure styles. And we might show some of them here.
Yeah.
So weekly, by the way, for those of you who are freaking out, are like, oh, is that going to affect my unsubscribe? It will actually faster create a positive list hygiene for you, so you will get to your best list sooner. Additionally, in my years and years and years and years of experience, I have sent at least 2,500 email broadcasts. The greater the frequency, the lower the unsubscribe rate. because the relationship becomes really, really deep. So, like, I have a list for Law Firm Alchemy that I will touch between 4 to 8 times a week. And I will, at times, go an entire week with 0 unsubscribes from my list because the relationship has depth to it. Um, so, larger list, multiple practice areas. When we're working with a client, the division that I first look at, if we're going to have more than one, is dividing up referral sources from like professional, high level, high value referral sources from general population, which might be
Okay.
current and past clients. That's the first thing that I'm looking at. Now, this firm, it sounds like much bigger, more significant. First, I want to know, is there a uniting theme among the practice areas? Now, if you're talking about a practice where you've got like an estate planning group and a personal injury group, yeah, maybe we need to talk about having separate newsletters there. However, if having this is, and Ron, this is like one of my governing concepts on the psychology of this,
Okay.
is if having multiple newsletters is what gets in the way of pressing send every week, the value of pressing send every week is greater than the segmentation itself. The segmentation is a force multiplier of what we're doing. So if I had estate planning and personal injury, yeah, I'd love to send one of those, one of each
Mhm.
week. Um, Now, if it's a firm that's, say, personal injury and criminal defense, we can often unite around the concept of it being a trial firm. And so we only need to press send on one email newsletter each week. But yeah, it depends on sophistication. And of course, it also depends on the goals.
Very fair. You talked about like pruning the list and making sure that you've got your best subscribers that are not going to be unsubscribing because they are engaged. And I've been in a ton of CRMs and know
Mhm.
that data hygiene isn't always where it should be. So as far as keeping up on that list and pruning it, is that a process that you're doing every month after every send? And how do you keep it nice and tight? Is there a process that people can use?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the hardest parts about email marketing. And this is where we find that not every client is the same, quite frankly. Because the first thing that I would want to know for all of you here, first thing I'm asking is how often are you already staying in touch with your list? Like if you haven't sent an email in the last 3.5 years, your hygiene levels are going to be fairly low. And our early emails are going to want to be carefully gauged and for any bounces, if we see high bounce rates, high spam complaints, which because of the way that we do emails, even when we're going to relatively cooled off, not outright cold lists, we don't really see that high of a level of that. We might see high unsubscribe rate at first. You want the unsubscribes over those first few weeks because those people are immediately telling you, no, thank you, right? No, thank you. For bigger lists, what we'll do is we take a portion of the list and we'll just start with a segment. Let's say you have 10,000 people on the list. I don't really want to start with more than 1 to 2,000 of those. And if we're able to, like, if you have a sophisticated CRM set up and we can at least find out who are the most recent people to come on the list so they have recent connection with you, let's send to those people first, see how that gets dialed in. And then either we move people onto the list from there, say adding them in bulk ads of 250 to 1,000. Again, depends on quality of the list. Or we'll actually, this is something we're working on with one client. We'll perform, who I think has someone on here right now. We'll perform a side campaign that is really a warm up campaign to see who's opening from the rest of the list and add the open emails, the people who are opening emails from that warm up campaign onto that main weekly email list.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just heavy engineering. We also are using tools more often like Zero Bounce, which you can use to run your email list through, and it will find spam traps. It will quality score your emails as well. And it turns out there's a list being kept of people who are spam abusers. Those are the people who, when they unsubscribe from a list, almost always press the spam reporting version instead of just unsubscribing. And so you can go ahead and take those people off your list ahead of time if you're worried about getting spam complaints. Again, we never see that be particularly high or within any red flag region with clients. So that hasn't been a concern.
Sure. We've got a question in here, and I also, since we're starting to touch on tech, like I know
Yeah.
at LegalFenix, we're using HubSpot, and
Yeah.
the tool is telling me legitimately when people are not engaged, if they haven't opened over a period of, I believe it's a 90-day period, if they haven't touched anything, auto remove them. It just
Yep.
drops them into like that list because they're no longer engaged. And hey, like you see, the people that are opening it are more engaged. They are, I'm getting replies, which we've got a question here, Brandon from Swift. Appreciate you jumping in here. What do you
What's up,
recommend
Brandon?
with replies? Integrate with case management system or just route to the marketing team to then handle how they see fit?
Great question. And so, as I always do with any of these things, I'm going to kind of qualify based on level of the firm and available resources. So, for example, in a program like HubSpot or even Go High Level or some of these other CRM systems that you can work with, you can set a reply tracker email within the actual software that will allow you to also measure reply rate. In terms of what you do with replies, first off, reply back, right? I know that it seems very obvious, but do not let a good reply go to waste. If you can have it be a back and forth conversation, like if someone replies to you, reply back. And if you can ask a question of them and create a level of engagement, that encourages future replies, which is so good for email broadcast health. It's so good for it. If you can integrate it with the case management system, that's awesome. Here's the one issue that you may run into, depend on the system that you're using. If it is all being pushed into the case management system, you need to make sure that someone knows to look for those and then reply to them in the case management system. So, like we use Go High Level in Red Kraken. When we get replies to emails, they're routed into Go High Level rather than, say, coming directly to my inbox. So I have to make sure I'm looking at the conversations tab in Go High Level to respond back to create that reply back and forth. Um, I, as for Brandon's last part of it about should you route it to the marketing team to handle how they see fit, the only time that you should do that is if you have a specific campaign going on, in my opinion and experience. Okay. I get it. They're really busy law firm owners. If you have a list of 40,000 people, you're a national firm, just route it to the marketing team, right? Like, yes, do that. You've got people who are built to be your representatives. But if you
Yeah.
got a list of 2,000, 3,000, or 500, handle it yourself as the owner. This is like commenting on DMing people on LinkedIn. The marketing team can then handle how they see fit. The exception would be if you're a smaller team and you're maybe running some type of event promotion, let's say an estate planning firm, and you have seminars and you want to make sure that the marketing team sees people saying, yeah, I'm interested for more information. You may just want to have that routed off to the marketing team.
Listen, I could say I love when I get that feedback. We actually have
Yep.
a shared client that recently had a client's, I forget if it was a parent or someone that had represented their son, and they got the newsletter and they said, do you understand the words that you are actually speaking here are so in line with your values and what you preach out in your marketing? And as someone that's helping a firm managing their marketing, the clarity that we get and the response that we're getting on their messaging and positioning is incredible. We can
Yeah.
use that in so many different other ways that it's also just great market feedback for us. So if possible, if the marketing contact is there, I always take that stuff. I love it. We
Yeah.
have we've got another question from Tiffany
What's
talking
up,
about
Tiff?
approaching a big list here, big list, 6,000 plus basically. How do you approach that if something like that hasn't been cleaned in months?
Honestly, it's funny. I see the term months. I'm like, well, that's not that bad compared to some of the stuff that I've worked on, right? Like months, I'm pretty happy with. Now, my guess is some of the intention there in terms of cleaned in months. I don't know if it's been used in months either, right? Or maybe it hasn't been utilized in 2 years, and maybe there was a recent cleanup that they did a quick campaign on it. My guiding light is about 10 to 20% of the list is where I start with. So 10 to 20% of the most recent contacts in this case. So we're talking between 600 to 1200. If I really want to go big on it and I'm trying to jump right out of the gate and get it all taken care of, I'm going to run all 6,000 names through zero bounce. There's some other tools out there. I'm going to remove all of the people who have a quality score. So it scores you between every email address between 1 to 10. I am going to, by default, remove everyone who has a 0 to 2 score. I'm just going to tag them. I'm not going to unsubscribe them yet. I'm going to tag them as low quality. And then I'm going to send to everyone who has a score of like 8 to 10 on there and start there. So that way I have high list hygiene. So that's how I would segment that across that list. And then depending on how the first 2 to 3 emails go, now I'm going to look at people who are in the range of a 5 to 7 score and start moving those in. I as a simple rule of thumb, right? We all like our solid rules of thumb. I'm not going to add more than roughly 10% total list size, give or take, onto those each week, onto those future ads, like no more than another 600 on that 5 to 7 list. Just you will always have the opportunity to roll people on going forward, but you can't undo an oversend that hurts your email reputation. So we try and keep it smaller and roll up from there.
Okay. Uh, Tangentially related, I believe, as far as like basically staying out of spam. I've got a Gmail user clearly that is asking how to avoid ending up in the promotions tab and then obviously spam folder.
Yeah. So this is where we allude to our DORA formula. And Ron was started in on it earlier, where first DORA, DORA, deliverability, open, read, acted on. Those are the 4 parts of the DORA formula. So now we're in the deliverability space. And with the deliverability space, getting put in the promotions tab will happen.
Mhm.
That is, there's a little bit of cost of doing business. You still get delivered, which is good for your deliverability. But in getting moved out of the promotions tab, as you can imagine, stripping away as much of the obvious promotional material as humanly possible makes a big difference. So when we're looking at high deliverability to a primary inbox, a few things that we're working on. One, text dominant emails. That's the number one phrase that we use when we talk about email. Text dominant. If you have one of those emails that has a bunch of images on it, as a matter of fact, let me share a little bit here. I'm
Do
going to
it.
share with you just an all-time oh no, please don't do it email. So this email right here, and I'm not going to scroll up or down because I'm not giving away who actually wrote it or who sent it. So this email right here, first off, this isn't even text, it's images. That so they copied like something from Canva and they uploaded it in here. And so this thing doesn't compress on mobile. It's going to look absolutely awful. Please note the majority of your prospects, the majority of your existing list will check their email on a mobile device.
Yep.
That's why we do text dominant, because text will auto format to that device. Whereas images, we don't always know how well they're going to show up on the device. You have to worry about padding and margins and this and that and the other. This is bad news bears right here. So we avoid being image heavy. We prefer something like this. So my buddy Andrew Ayers, when he sends an email, this is a text dominant email. He uses a few buttons in it.
Mhm.
Uh, his is actually longer than it really needs to be, but he's got a format dialed in for himself. So this is a good example of a text dominant email that has a better shot of ending up in inboxes. Let's see. Okay, so this is Mike Waslick, Ricardo Law down in Florida. This is a great way to end up in the primary inbox. Just text, high value, simple. This does not need to be complicated.
There's no images in this one.
No images whatsoever. This text dominant style just helps with deliverability. The reason is that images have often been used to hide dangerous URLs. And so that's one of the things that can get flagged in the system. Now, the good news is systems like Gmail are pretty good at following the URL path and
Mhm.
determining if it's malicious or spam. But it's just one more thing that doesn't put you at an outright disadvantage, but isn't necessarily helping you. And if your ratio is just a bunch of images and a tiny bit of text, that's a surefire way to be put in a newsletter's promotion tab.
There. Any other examples that you want to pop off here?
I've got some more that I'll go through, but I see that we have another question. So I'll roll into some of the examples as we continue moving because I got a
Sure.
lot of good ones.
This one, Kate from VDM. How do you convince a client who is more concerned with how the newsletter looks than the deliverability to make it more text dominant?
Ooh, so that's what we do, right? The good news is Most people are pretty amenable to it, to moving to more text dominant. Actually, you know what? I should have just left the share up because I can share another guy who I think does a good job of balancing some of this. Let's see here. So this is Rob Turner. Rob does a good job of having a consistent brand on his email. So the other thing we talk about are two types of headlines or subject lines. So if deliverability is all the tech stack, at some point, Ron, remind me to go over SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records for everyone. Um, if that's the deliverability side, for the open, your open is one, the amount of trust that you have with your audience, and two, what the heck are you putting in the subject line? There are two core ways that we approach subject lines in emails. One is brand new curiosity every single time. So if we look back at Mike's email, they lied to the judge and we caught them. That's a pure curiosity driven subject line.
Mhm.
The other hand, if we look at what Rob is doing and actually what Kevin Deeb is doing over here, Kevin every single week sends Cafecito Chronicles. There's no modifier to it. He sends both the Cafecito Chronicles and Rising in Miami. One goes to referral sources, one goes to general population. So every single week, that's what he's sending. That is a trust email campaign, right? The first time he sends it to a new person on the list, they may not open it. That may not click originally with them. And it may mean a rapid unsubscribe. But for the people who do open this, and if you read a couple of Kevin's emails, you're going to go, yeah, I want to read the Cafecito Chronicles every week because he does a great job getting text dominant, fast pace to it, not being precious about, oh, I've got to have my big paragraphs. And I know Kevin gets clients off of his emails. He gets referrals and he gets direct signups off of his emails. And he does this universal PS down here. Then we have Rob over here that does a little bit of the blend. Every single week, he's got lessons from the trails, but then he has a sort of sub headline with the main subject line. That's where you can combine the two. But every single week, people are getting lessons from the trails. And you can see he will often have a photo in that email. Mm-hmm. My issue with a photo like this, especially a vertical photo, is at some point when you're scrolling, it can just occupy the entire screen. And it's lovely. I love the greenery. But this could be the place where someone gets to this and goes, click back. All right, back to the rest of the inbox. Mm-hmm. I would rather shrink down this photo and get to this trail spotlight right here where he just does a good job of telling the story, telling perspective, keeping people engaged with his emails. So if we're going directly to Kate's question, convincing the client about how the newsletter looks, text looks good. It's an email. Right? People are there to read it. People are there to actually pay attention to what you've sent. And you're not a clothing brand. The visuals don't tell the real story of what you do. We will use images to enhance a story. Let's say your law firm showed up at a charitable event. Let's put an image of the team at the charitable event in that email to enhance what we're doing. You'll also see a lot of the emails I'm showing, it's black text on a white background. That's also good for deliverability and to stay away from the promotions tab.
I've noticed in most of these as well, the email address, there's got to be a reason behind this, correct?
Yeah. So if we're able to use, this is also a difficult decision. So a lot of times when we're coming in with a client, the default is we are using their name and their email address.
That's how I'm doing it right now.
Absolutely. That's how you're going to get the best default deliverability. Mm-hmm. For very large law firms, let's say you're the owner of a law firm and it's going to be your name on the email and you're sending to a list of 25,000. You may be worried about all of those out of office notifications, all of those auto replies that you get. You may be worried that what if I get a ton of replies to this? It's just more stuff in my inbox. Two things. One, if you're leading a firm that's got 25,000 people in it, why don't you have an executive assistant parsing through your emails for you? And two, this may actually go back to Brandon's earlier question of, do you have a tech stack that's good enough to have those replies actually routed into your system that can be handled by your marketing team for you? So we can have the power of sending from you while having it routed to another location on the replies. Also, in sophisticated systems, even unsophisticated systems, your send email and your reply to email can be two different emails. If you make this shift, it can affect deliverability. If you have a smaller list, just let it be you. Let it be, we look here, Mike at ricardolaw.com, right? For Andrew, it's going to be airs at andrewmairs.com. That's what we want.
Why, when you separate that, does that impact deliverability when you've got the different from and to or send from?
It's just one of those clues to Gmail, or especially if you're a new sender,
Okay.
Gmail is going to look at all the different factors of, does this appear to be behaving like a spam emailer would behave? They're not going through and looking through your long history of proper usage of emails and how you currently email through your CRM system. There's only so much depth that it has if it's actually honoring any level of privacy for you. So it can only rely on a certain number of clues. And it does get relatively complicated to go through from all these clues. Like, we're working with a client right now trying to reverse a deliverability issue that cropped up because there was some shift in the sender email because there's specific reasons to move away, but it hurt deliverability. And so we're having to unwind some of that for them.
Fair. Understood. All right. You wanted a gentle reminder here. Let's do SPF.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mark.
Let's talk the real nerdy stuff here. Ooh, baby. So there are 3 records that you're going to pay attention to. Your SPF record, Sender Policy Framework. I'm not going to give all the acronyms out here. Your DKIM, DKIM, and then your DMARC, which is DMARC. So SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. These are basically the records telling the recipient program, the Gmail, the Outlook, the whoever hosts the person's email, this is actually sent on behalf of the person who owns this domain, right? Like for LegalFenix.com, with your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records set up, they walk up to Google, and Google, Gmail's sitting there, it's being a bouncer, and it's like, show me your papers, right? Show me you're the real deal. And if you walk up and you don't have those records set up, it's like you're walking up to that bouncer and going, no, but like, I promise I'm definitely here on behalf of Ron. Like, it's totally for him. And the bouncer, if it's a responsible bouncer, is going to go, come back with proof, right? Now, if it's a slightly irresponsible bouncer, or maybe they've heard like, yeah, Ron's the type of guy who I think he does send people, they may still allow some folks in. They may be like, yeah, okay, fine, right? It's not a perfect system. But if you don't have those SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records set up, your deliverability rates are just absolutely collapsed. You are also not building long-term email health. Your SPF is something you've got to have that says, not only am I allowed to send from LegalFenix, but HubSpot is allowed to send from LegalFenix. So that's representing the system that you're using. Your DKIM and DMARC records. So the DKIM record has a policy to it where it gets way too technical, but you have to have a policy of none, quarantine, reject, and it has to do with how the permission that you're giving other email systems to use your emails if they feel like you've screwed up, essentially.
Okay.
And there are different levels that we set those at, depending on if you're a new sender, a mature sender. We want to elevate those over time. You just don't want to get these wrong, because if you do, you just get flagged, you get tossed in the spam. It completely collapses everything. So, by the way, for everyone who wants to know, do you have yours set up? I'm gonna go ahead and show a website real quick. If someone wants to plug in a URL into the chat, I'll go ahead and do a DMARC lookup for you, and I'm going to show everyone how to use the tools for this.
Any volunteers here? Here we go. Tiffany.
Perfect.
There we go. ScottMcNair.com.
Love it. What's up, y'all? So let me grab that URL. All right, Tiff. So you go to this website, easydmarc.com/tools. Okay. This is where you're going to go. You're going to type in your domain name without any of the modifiers, just like you see it here on the screen for scottvicnair.com. You're going to scan that domain. So we see some issues here. So let's take a look at the details on this. So our SPF seems to be set up properly. That's great. You've got to have that set up. DMARC, so what we can see here is it's partially set up. So there is a DMARC here. There is a record set to none rather than quarantine or reject. But what's missing here is this additional piece that says, hey, if we're going to send reports back to you on issues, we need an email address to send the reports back to you. And so there's an input that you need to make. So the DMARC record needs to be upgraded. The DKIM record, let me tell you all the secret here. Everyone lean in real close because I'm going to just tell the truth about this. DKIM is the most complicated part because there's different types of ways that DKIM records are put into your DNS records. This is something that has been shifted recently. A lot of these DKIM monitors do not do a good job of picking up on them. The other place you can look at is called MX Toolbox. That's the other resource to use if you're trying to find out if the records are properly input in your DNS records, which, by the way, at Red Kraken, we handle this for folks. Like we will take your login to your website or your web hosting or domain hosting platform, like a GoDaddy or a Cloudflare. We'll go in and check all of these records for you, make sure they're okay, and any missing records we'll take care of for you. If there's a website developer who says, no, we're not going to let them have access to those records, well, we'll just call it a red flag, right? So right now we'd want to know, is there an actual DKIM record? The only way that I would know that 100% for sure would be to go into the DNS records and check to see that the DKIM is set up properly.
All right, so that was MX Toolbox. The DMARC website was easydmarc.com.
That's the one.
Perfect. Love the live demonstration here.
Absolutely. So anyone at home right now or in your office, I don't know why I said at home.
We're working.
Whether you're in your pajamas or your suit, you can go to easydmarc.com/tools and go ahead and put in your URL to get a sense of where you're at. Just know that the results will, unless it's all green across the board, then yes, that's accurate. But if you see a yellow or a red, that means that there are questions to ask. It doesn't mean you're screwed. It just means there's questions to ask and maybe some things we need to fill in.
Very cool. All right. We've covered a lot here. I do want to get into content strategy because someone owning marketing and is as active as I am on LinkedIn, some lawyers are always asking me, like, what do I write about? Who cares about what? Right. So I want to do that and then make sure that we leave at least the last 15 minutes here for additional questions so everyone can go off and ask whatever question is nearest and dearest to themselves. So first, when you're working with clients, how do you figure out, like, I know it's personality driven, but how do you figure out what to write, like what the audience cares about and how it's actually going to create those stronger relationships, get people to take action on it and open up those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing that we want to know is what does the law firm owner, especially in a smaller firm, and then what does the law firm as an entity care about and what are they trying to represent in the world? Perhaps what are they trying to change in the world beyond just the legal work that they do? Are there local organizations that they support? Are there sports teams that they support? Is there pop culture? Are they a movie person? Do they have television shows that they love? I was actually talking with a law firm owner who does exclusively medical malpractice. And he's going to have a very small list to start with. We're not going to be working with him. He's not quite ready yet. He still needs to build his list. And we want him to start pressing send for enough amount of time and have a big enough list before he works. I mean, we're talking someone who has like 11 names that he's putting on his list. And the suggestion I gave to him is watch an episode of House MD every single week and write about how House committed malpractice. Just start there, right? It's an easy bit of connective tissue because he really just wants to email referral sources. All of his referral sources, especially attorneys, will be of the age that they remember the phenomenon of House MD,
Mhm.
right? We were all tuning in every single week to see what crazy medical thing was happening over there. And so that's an example of how you can use, say, pop culture and be memorable. The other thing is, do you have personal stories to share or client stories to share? For clients, we're and continuing to iterate on this process, batching stories, experiences, both personal and in the law firm, that we can use. And by the way, use over and over and over again in emails. One of the other reasons that we send every single week is because not everyone opens all of your emails, right? You know, you get, let's say 30%, 25%, 20%, 40%. By the way, it's a wide range between about 14 to 42% that we see on opens here. Uh, you get you get a portion to open each week, which means the story you tell on, the first week of January, you can and should reuse that, or at least a portion of it, come July, because there's a portion of your audience who didn't never saw the story. And you should repeat and reuse your best materials. If anyone has ever seen a stage speaker, or there's an author that you love, they sing the hits, don't they? They give the hits of they go up there and they're going to tell the best stories from the book. They're going to tell their best stories from real life in every single podcast that they go on. You approach email in the same way. The thing that changes is, maybe let's test a different subject line, right? Let's see a different subject line, different call to action within those. It's based primarily on objectives of the firm, but then it's sourcing from every place that we can, including online. Like if we're working with a firm that is prolific on YouTube, or uses Instagram a bunch, or LinkedIn, you can source materials from there. You write it a little bit different for email because you don't have to play to the algorithms in the same way. Like the way that you write a hook for an email is different than a hook for LinkedIn, where you're trying to get them to click that read more button.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons I love email personally, because I get to write a little more naturally for myself and for the clients. But that's how we're going to source content. Then the governing agent over, okay, we've got personal stories, client stories, pop culture references, local events, organizations we support. We have all those categories. The governing agent over this is those OKRs. What's the objective that the firm is trying to achieve? And perhaps if the firm is aggressively pursuing new client signups, maybe talking about the charitable organizations is something that's put on pause for a little bit. We need to focus just on client stories and results, and maybe some pop culture references that help people understand part of the legal process and gets them curious and interested. We'll pull those out and say, let's focus on those for right now.
You talked about the med mal attorney that only had 10 or 11 people on the list. Like,
Yeah.
when is it? What is that? Is there a magic number here where if we don't have enough people on the list, we have to wait and build it up? Or what's your approach there?
So I have a client, not Kraken on Law Firm Alchemy, who he has more than one email that he sends. The email that he sends to referral partners, attorneys, and high value professional contacts has 24 people on it. It actually produces more in terms of new business than his general population email newsletter, which has about 400 on it. And so you don't need a big list if it's a quality list. If the only thing that you have right now is general population and maybe a mix in of referral sources, it's just about psychological motivation. I get that it's hard to write an email that's going out to 24 people. I do understand that. But if you understand it as, like, for me, email is so important that when I first started Law Firm Alchemy, like the first version of my list was just over 60 people,
Yeah.
right? Then you grow it over time. And so now there's more than 1,000 people over there. I've written for email lists that have 8,000, 10,000 on them. You got to get in the habit and see the value and see what it produces. And then you'll be motivated to get people on there. The same way that you use a platform where you want people to follow you. The truth is that, let's say it's Instagram, which I don't really like as a platform for law firms, but let's say we're going to go in on it and we have a good reason to do it. Am I developing a system that actually gets people to follow me, or am I just using it as an output engine? Just blah, blah, blah. I actually talked with a potential client earlier today.
Hmm.
And for the email, he was asking, how do I grow my list? All of the other channels that we talked about, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of these places where you're probably doing an output of content right now in order to stay on top of this algorithmically driven ecosystem, all of those can be anchor points to send someone back to your weekly email newsletter. Just give them the why. Hey, make sure you sign up for our weekly email newsletter where we regularly share 1, 2, and 3. We regularly share the craziest things that we've overheard in the courtroom, local organizations you may love to support, and resources everyone should know about. If it was Rob Turner, it's make sure you sign up for lessons from the trail, where I'll share with you my unique perspectives as a trail runner each and every week.
Sure.
That's how you handle that.
Yeah, I'm actively trying to do it myself, kind of deplatform, build up an audience on LinkedIn now, funnel them back, use that stuff. But the opposite can also be true too, leveraging the newsletter to then drive more subscribers or bring other people to other platforms.
That's what I love. I love the back and forth of, hey, oh shoot, we just posted this wild thing over on TikTok or Instagram. Let's go send people there from your email to support that. We can create a rising tide for all of the marketing boats that you have.
You just submitted a question outside of chat here. I promise this isn't a softball for your for to tee you up for a grand slam here, but should our attorneys write the newsletters themselves, or should we outsource, involve marketing staff? I'm concerned about losing my own voice or authenticity, and then it won't sound like me.
Totally get it. So, uh, obviously, I'm a little biased toward the outsourcing, but here's the belief here. You should outsource it. If you're going to do it in house, more power to you. I just honestly, I beg of everyone here, please do this. Please do a weekly email newsletter. If your fear is losing your voice, if you are already pressing send on emails, and let's say you have a year's worth of weekly emails, you should be able to hand over those 52 emails to an organization like Red Kraken Creative, and that allows us to see your voice, understand your voice, and assign a copywriter, an email marketer to that voice who will be able to write in your tone. The truth is, every single writer out there brings a little bit of themselves into the writing. That is just the honest to goodness truth. What we want you to see is a version of yourself that you go, oh, that's me sort of hyped up a little bit. I kind of like how I sound over there. It's different, but I really like it. Sometimes it's just the way the words get organized. We've had like clients who have submitted things to us, stories that are just miles long, right? And so we pull it down and we go with the just the facts version. And we've seen feedback like, oh, wow. Actually, wow, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, right? Wow, you managed to tell we did the TLDR version, still bringing out the excitement in it
Hmm.
without it being incredibly long. And they appreciate us creating a more concise version for them. And the opposite is true. We've had people who tell us, like, this thing happened. It's like 2 sentences. And all of a sudden, we have a nice, solid story where we've maybe done some background research on it to incorporate that in. So you're going to sound a little bit different than you perceive yourself today. You can have an in-house marketer do it. My one concern with in-house marketers, who, by the way, I love and adore, I genuinely do, is if it gets shortcutted, moved down the list, generally deprioritized, or gets produced in a typical graphics heavy fashion, which is the default for a lot of people starting an email newsletter, because what they see a lot of times in the emails they receive are fashion brands, are people saying it's our 20% off sale. Or they're seeing something like a Morning Brew, which is a company that's an email newsletter company, which its whole revenue model is built on the email newsletter format with multiple parts in order to allow for additional space for advertisers in it, which is different than what you're trying to achieve. So those are my concerns with an in-house marketer doing it. But if your in-house marketer like just clicks with it, jives with what you're talking about, more power to you. I'd love to handle your email newsletter. Obviously, we'll also take it off of your plate, because it is, if you're sitting down every week and going, oh, dear God, what do I send?
Yeah.
We've got that handled for you. And so you get all the benefits of it without worrying about it every single week.
For the do-it-yourselfers and in-house legal marketers that are going to tackle this themselves, any recommendations to have some sort of systemized workflow or how they can put themselves in a better position to deliver it consistently?
Keep a catalog of ideas, reference points, etc. So, like for myself, I have multiple lists, both offline, online, in apps, just wherever is handy to put down the idea. So, like the other day, I was watching the most recent Spider-Man movie with my kids, and there's a part in it where basically the reason the movie happens is because Peter Parker, who is, Gen Z,
Mhm.
refuses to pick up the phone to call the college to figure out like what the problem is, and to try and get his friends. We'll make sure that happens, Jason. And should have just called up the college. Instead, he decides to put on his Spider-Man suit and go have a spell cast by Doctor Strange. And I looked at that, I said, well, learning how to solve problems by immediately reaching out to them instead of going this long roundabout way of trying to DIY it, that's going to make for a fantastic email. So I just put that in my app, right? I just dropped it in the app. So that way, when I go and sit down to the email, I can just open up whatever the application is, whatever it might be. I can go, which of these ideas do I want to write about now? You shouldn't spend time staring at a blank page. If you find yourself in that moment of I'm looking at the blank page, I don't know what I'm going to write about, you need to have the catalog of ideas available to you to create inspiration. Bookmark websites that inspire you, whatever it is, just don't spend time forcing it. Find it from work you've done in the past.
All right. I'm going to open this up. Anyone in the Q&A? I'm going to keep going, Charlie, and as they do come in via the chat or Q&A, we'll pepper them in with
Sweet.
about 8 minutes left here. If we've got to go rapid fire, we'll just bring the heat. All right.
Oh, me and rapid fire. Either I'm super rapid fire or I'm like, this is going to take 18 minutes rapid fire.
Well, this is a question that I get constantly about
Yeah.
LinkedIn, but it's
Yeah.
really what time of day or what day should I be sending this newsletter?
So we send, again, I told y'all I'd share everything. Like we use Easy DMark and Zero Bounds. We send Tuesdays and Wednesdays between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. It's a good rule of thumb. The earlier in the day that you send, the better. Uh, don't usually send on weekends, Mondays, or Fridays. If there are always exceptions to these rules, but if you're looking for those easy defaults, that's what we do. I think that's fair to say you should do it as well.
Okay. We talked about evaluating success, different ways to define whether they're OKRs or like whatever you're tying back to your business goals and objectives, but this is one that was
Yeah.
pre-submitted. What are the other metrics that we should be tracking?
Yeah.
Just let's hit that one.
Absolutely. So first off, you will have deliverability reported by your email service provider. Your deliverability, I mean, you're shooting for 100%, and that is a realistic goal to hit. When you're initially sending, you do want deliverability to be greater than 98%. Most modern email service providers or ESP will automatically not send to people that are have been previous hard bounces and all of this other stuff. On the open rate front, which would be the next measurable that we're looking at, it is variable between quality of list, previous relationship, and you'll land somewhere between about 14 to 42%. We do have clients, even some who have significantly larger lists, where
Mhm.
we have emails that will go for greater than a 50% open rate. That's fantastic when it happens. But you really are looking for that batting average. If I were giving a very simple number to look for, is how close can you get to about 30%? That usually represents a level of solid list hygiene while also extending yourself and trying to grow that list in a way that represents a modicum of what we'll call risk. Isn't really risk, but it is list growth overall. And then when we're looking at click through rates, if you're trying to drive, well, and clicks, by the way, are super variable. Email platforms, they report opens and clicks in different ways because technically speaking, certain email platforms will automatically, like I mentioned earlier, click through on links in order to check to see if they're malicious or spam links. That may be erroneously reported as a click rate. And in some cases, your email service provider, which is what you're sending through, will also overly aggressively not partition clicks or consider something a click because of that. It's not that bad, but in general, if you're trying to drive clicks, like a good solid 2% click through rate is nice to shoot for. If you can at least get it over 1%. Some people talk about getting a 10, 11%. I will tell you that if you're getting a 10 to 11% click-through rate every single time, it's because of extra reporting. It's not because of real live clicks for the most part.
Fair enough. In
Yeah.
the Q&A here, Todd Smith, any tips for choosing a platform or vendor for email delivery?
Absolutely. So if we're talking about a platform, uh, most of them are pretty good. That's the good news. My default is to recommend Active Campaign because it integrates with a lot of other systems. So it can pair with your existing tech stack. If you have a larger CRM, such as HubSpot, it is great if you can use the email program that is within the CRM itself, because that way you also can use all of the data within the CRM and have just better data for the law firm overall. So that's great. MailChimp, we actually have several clients who use MailChimp and we're getting pretty strong deliverability with them. But again, we also do that text dominant version as opposed to what a lot of MailChimp newsletters are like, which is really just image driven, a lot of graphics, etc. So we tend to on MailChimp, we tend to do better than maybe others would do on there. Um, but Active Campaign is my go-to default.
All right. We brought up testing subject lines as well
Mhm.
as, other ways to try to improve performance. How much A/B testing should we be doing regarding subject lines, CTAs, anything else we should consider?
Ooh, let me do my controversial opinion. I don't love A/B testing on emails because we're sending every single week. Unless what we're testing is the difference between and look, there's a variety of reasons to not to not do A/B testing. Part of it is one, it complicates the process sometimes, and it's more approval process. How the list actually gets split up then has a significant role in the performance overall. So if you can have a very perfect split test where we understand that our list data sets are equal in value to each other, A/B testing can be valuable. That's the biggest factor overall that will change that open rate. Is if I send to number one to A gets the higher quality list, that could show an open rate percentage points of, let's say, 2.5% better.
Okay.
Well, now we're thinking that A won. Maybe it was just the better list overall. This is why I view email as a long-term play for you. And so I'm not out, like, I don't hate A/B testing. I think sometimes it gets a little overvalued in the email space. The the reason we're sending every single week is we can start to be a really good judge of what does our list respond to. Do they tend to open subject lines that have title caps rather than sentence caps, where you're capitalizing each word rather than only capitalizing the first word? Do they like questions? Do they like sensationalisms? Do they respond to numbers? If I were to do an A/B split test, the A/B split test that I would run would be the difference between something like Rob Turner's email, Lessons on the Trail,
Mhm.
versus something like Mike Waslick's email, which is just a curiosity driver, and see what happens over time if I split the list down the middle between the ones receiving that regular, consistent subject line versus those who are just receiving the curiosity drivers each time. That's the most compelling split test number to really understand your audience.
You snuck in there a little bit something about timeline, and that there was a question about, when this is not an overnight success criteria or timeline
Yeah.
thing. So how long do we wait to know it's working? Whether or not we should be relaunching, like doing some of this testing to get better results so that we can strengthen those relationships and hopefully create some more opportunities.
Uh, Man, it's always the hardest question to answer, right? Because I feel like I feel for everyone who's providing SEO services on this one. Um, because you know that you go into it saying you don't get exactly what you said, Ron, overnight results.
Mhm.
What you should see with email is some type of new knowledge and new data very fast. And what I mean by that is, do I better understand what my audience seeks from me? Do they seek advice? Do they seek entertainment? And by the way, you should have entertainment baked in there. Uh, am I getting any personal replies to these emails? That's an early indicator. Do I get personal replies from the emails? over the long term, again, I am benchmarking the email against current referred in clients. And I also understand that email will only ever be part of that solution. I would want every firm doing an email newsletter, making sure that they're doing referral meetups, building their network, posting on LinkedIn, all of that other stuff that goes into generating referrals. But email done over time, if you were to only do email, which fine, although again, I believe in doing everything, we're benchmarking against the referrals that come into the practice. And then can we then tie back the referral source for that? Oh, like Susie, who had never referred us a case, has been on this email newsletter now for 57 weeks, and she sent us a case. That's fantastic. Hadn't heard from Susie previously. That's what those are the numbers that we're looking at.
We just hit 2 o'clock. That hour
I
flew.
know.
Thank you everyone that has shared in the chat, in the Q&A. Your participation has been incredible. We really appreciate it. Real quick, Charlie, let's sneak it in here because we'll have the recording. Where do people find you? Where should they go to hit you up? We got a survey after here. As you close down, you could say whether or not you want to talk to them, but what else would you like them to know?
Go to redkrakencreative.com. Can I drop that URL in the?
Absolutely.
Absolutely great. So, redkrakencreative.com. Go over there. And if you're looking to potentially work with us, there is a work with us application to fill out. We also have a couple of other free resources, and we have our own email newsletter that we do 2 each week of different styles. So you can see a couple of styles of email newsletters. So if you go to redkrakencreative.com, that's where the resources are going to be available for you.
I love the saltiness of the cephalopods in my inbox.
Yeah. All them little fishies. By the
That's
way, writing in the brand of a Kraken is a true delight.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I really appreciate it. This was incredibly exciting and an education was given to myself as well. Thank you, everyone that has continued to come to the webinar series. We'll be back at it next month. So we'll see you soon.
Woo. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everyone.
Later, Charlie. Enjoy that
Bye.
vacation.
I will.
Bye bye.